New PRLG 2 fan film sequel details revealed. Greetings and welcome, Anthony Mars Jr. on PR Lost Galaxy 2014 with podcast episode 145, presented by my self-devoted fan page on Facebook, the Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Fan-Film Facebook page, and as well as the group page for the fan film series as well, and as well as my Morphin Megaverse Power Rangers Facebook group, and onwards. If you have not checked any of those, check them out now. The links to those respective pages are on the bottom below. I'm not going to keep, as much as I've been doing this a lot of times for you guys to resonate. If you guys are paying attention to my content and saying F me, who cares? Well, everybody, this is it. For the first time in 3 years since my time on PR Lost Galaxy 2014, and in terms of subscriber feed, for the first time in 3 years, I have finally gained over 500 subscribers. Congratulations to all of those who helped support my channel, and as well as, watching some of my videos, even though half of the videos, like I mentioned back in when I made my 400th, video upload on the channel, when I was doing 2 MMPR related topics last time, that, as soon as when I made it to over 400 video uploads, although, like I said, some videos that I had up here are considered on private, some of them are unlisted, and some of them were removed due to copyright reasons or reasonings of why half of the videos I've made over the course of 3 years were considered a little bit uncomfortable for those who felt that the subject matters that I made to those people, if I wasn't really doing them directly to them, made them feel uncomfortable, and that's why I took some videos like that down. And anyway, but still, I finally reached the milestone in this podcast, although relating to my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film series. This video is my milestone of gaining over 500 subscribers. I would likely indeed to incline to have 500 more, so that way I can have over 1,000 subscribers, and that's where I'm going to reach my goal. So I hope everyone subscribe to my channel, and as well as my sub channels, Anthony the Mars Jr. Channel, and probably Anthony Mars Jr. Films, although my channel over there is pretty quiet after I haven't posted anything there, and as well as on my brother's YouTube channel, Dark Rider X100, although he has no relation of doing videos with me as much as I do, because my brother and I don't really do videos together. This is why I'm so, as much as I've been such a very, my type of personality when I joined when I've been on PR Lost Galaxy 2014, ever since late August, early September 2012, 3 years ago. And when I said that I wanted to do a Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, well, actually, that was the first video that I've ever posted to start off PR Lost Galaxy 2014, getting everybody resonated for watching a Lost Galaxy fan film, even if it's going to have puppets or whatever, and knowing that people weren't going to watch it. I still wanted to embrace my dream of doing a fan film based on Lost Galaxy, while most of you filmmakers, inspired filmmakers out there want to do fan films based on the original Mighty Morphin team, more rather than any other Power Rangers series. Now, in regards to my recent been-announced fan film remake of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, the Rise of Trakeena, before I do so and talk about some of the things that I want to briefly announce, since I'm really excited to give you some news on what I'm doing with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2, I just want to tell you this about my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film. The one that I posted last year, where I've been posting a couple of trailers of and getting and all that other stuff on this channel, and as well as on the Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film Facebook fan page and group page as well. I just realized that as much as I have been working so hard on the first one, and I'm about to work as much harder on the second one and the third one onward, since I said I'm only going to do these Power Rangers as a fan film trilogy, because there's only 3 arcs to do of Lost Galaxy. The first movie being how the Rangers got together, got the Quasar Saber, search for the Lights of Orion, dealing with the main villain. That should be the first act of the first of the trilogy. Second act is the Rise of Trakeena, which is actually the name of the sequel, by the way, where Trakeena reigns supreme against Terra and the Power Rangers, and makes her, make the Rangers suffer her wrath. And whereas one of the Rangers of the Galaxy team does fall victim at the hands of the villain, or mostly Psycho Pink. And the third act being new Pink Ranger joining the team. The Terra Venture space colony enters the Lost Galaxy, dealing with another threat, unlike Trakeena or Scorpius, but more rather dealing with some really dangerous situations when Mutiny is taking control of Terra Venture, while Terra Venture is stuck in the Lost Galaxy. The Rangers got to find a way to get out of the Lost Galaxy. Magna Defender loses his powers, and that grand finale of Terra Venture being destroyed, and full-out invasion by Trakeena when she was infused with Deviant and the Stingwingers, and the ongoing final battle, and Lost Galaxy is over. But unfortunately, I will not give you any further details on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 3 until I'm done with the second one, because I don't want to rush these 2 sequel productions in one time. I'd rather take this at a slow pace. And I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 3, because I'm only working on number 2 right now. I can't do 2 different movies at the same time. I got to do one film. I have to do one Lost Galaxy fan film production at a time. When one film is done, then I'll proceed to the next one. So I expect myself not to rush myself while this is in process. But anyway, to be honest though, my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, far as albeit, sucked. It fucking sucked. I just rewatched my first Lost Galaxy fan film, and I thought about some of the flaws that this film had, and I realized that everything I did in that, last year's Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film really sucked. And I feel that what mainly sucked and dragged the film down was because as much as albeit to why people said about me using puppets, and knowing that, as much as I've seen a whole bunch of Power Rangers fan films, mainly some of those dark, gritty MMPR films out there, why I'm doing the film with puppets. Everybody does these movies, these kind of fan films with real people in costume, and that's what makes those fan films more enjoyable than something that's with puppets and toys, video game stock footage. I already explained my reason back in the podcast where I discussed that topic of why puppets, why I do the films with puppets, and I already stated my reasons about, doing the film with puppets, because I can't, buy a full-fledged Power Ranger, a full-fledged Lost Galaxy Power Ranger costume for anyone to wear for the fan film, when knowing I don't have that kind of money. And I stated that I don't have that kind. I still don't have the money to buy a full-fledged Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Ranger costume for any of the 5 actors that I'll have the cosplay as the Galaxy Rangers for the film. Because, first off, like I stated back in that exact video, if you watched it, that I'm not rich. I don't have the kind of money to buy every single Galaxy Ranger costume and all. I don't have that kind of money. So what makes you think I should do the fan film like everyone else, with the whole live action, real people scenario like every other fan film? Why should I do it? I mean, do you want me to be like everybody else? No. I'd rather be my own person. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like every other copycat out there. Yeah, you can continue. I mean, for those who, randomly come out of the blue and just see this video and hear me talk about that point, you're going to criticize me about why am I doing the film with puppets. And, one of my fellow subscribers, made a comment in reference to, well, what made me want to do the fan film of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy the way I did, as well as I'm going to, be honest though, I will do the next 2 movies this same fashion as well, but try to do it more, take the film more serious than I did the first film. That my inspiration for the fan film was has anyone seen that 1960s puppet show Thunderbirds? It's a British puppeteer live action show that used miniatures and puppets at the same time. You know what I'm talking about? Thunderbirds. You know that TV show that was from the 60s? It was a British show. It had marionette puppets. Well, mainly that term was how they made the character puppets was marionettes. And somehow, why do you think Thunderbirds is somehow universally acclaimed for its puppetry in cinematography of miniatures? So what the hell is people's problem? Why I'm doing my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film with puppets, action figures, video game stock footage, and other miscellany? What the hell is wrong with you people? Can you appreciate what I was doing with the film? This is why I felt this. The reason why I couldn't complete my first movie right was because I was too worried about how people would criticize the movie for using paper dolls, and that's why people would tell me that I fail as a movie maker and all that bullshit. Like, do I really excuse me? Like, do I really care what some of you a-holes that come out of the blue would say? Well, guess what? Fuck you and your problems. I'll continue doing what I do best. I don't, this is why I'd rather not listen to, to haters anymore. For now on, I think after this video, I'm going to have to start disabling comments on my video, the comment section of each of my new videos if this bullshit is going to happen. I'm only going to leave the like and dislike function on, but the comment section, that's going to be disabled after this video is posted. However, this will be my last video until my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film will be released no time soon. So you know what? But though I will leave comments only open for the Dino Charge vlog video series that I'm doing, since I'm currently doing vlogs on Power Rangers Dino Charge, and I will continue doing toy reviews of Power Rangers and whatever other, if I'm not doing any toy reviews of anything Power Rangers related or Sentai, I'll go ahead and do action figure reviews on other toys from Marvel and DC or so if I have the time. And, like if I'm reviewing Transformer toys or Spider-Man toys or Batman toys or Star Wars toys, I'll go ahead and do reviews on those. When I don't have any Power Ranger toys to review, if there are any good ones out there aside from the Dino Charge stuff and leftover Super Mega Force stuff, I'll go ahead and do that too. So, but anyway, my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film really did suck. So I suggest don't even bother see my first Lost Galaxy fan film. I don't think it's even worth it. One of the few flaws I have to point out about the first movie is that it barely even had a story. I mean, I had the premise all jotted out for the 2014 fan film, and it just slipped. Then the acting. Well, as much as for if any of you who have already seen my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film already, and just disabided it because of the way how and just totally arbitrarily ignored the film because you knew it was going to be a puppet movie. Though for those who randomly clicked on the video and clicked it as like troll, clickbait, thinking that is the fan film going to be with real people, you got most of the majority of you that are new to the channel will be pissed off that the fan film comprises of paper dolls with faces of celebrities that I like and follow, if I wish those celebrities would be the Power Rangers and their respective villains if they're humanoid or so, and you're going to be upset that it's all paper doll crap. And you're going to leave a comment saying, well, this is something that a 12-year-old would do, not a 22-year-old would do, and whatever. Okay, I rest my case. But still, my first film sucked, so what makes my sequel any better? My expectation is, I just hope my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, although I'm not filming a new Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film right now, or anything, I'm taking a long break from this fan film stuff until I get myself straight personally, and as well as getting my whatever else straight. So, and I said that, and I promised you that I won't start filming the next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film of mine until sometime around late summer 2016 next year, not to be around the same time when the new Power Rangers movie that Lionsgate is releasing next year comes out next year on July 23rd. I mean, July 22nd, 2016. I don't know what I'm talking about. But still, you know, I feel that my movie was crap. It sucked. And I felt that it was worse than Power Rangers Super Mega Force, and I felt it was worse than Super Mega Force. It didn't even have much of a story. It lacked so much character development, and it had a terrible villain that who I ripped off of an existing character from Star Wars, mainly a Star Wars video game. When knowing that that particular Star Wars character whose likeness I used for Lord Metarex has nothing to do with Power Rangers. It's just I couldn't think of a similar. I couldn't come up with my own version, my own character of him. Or what if I used, for Lord Metarex? What if I used the Shadowborg costume from Beetleborgs for the Metarex character? I mean, if the Shadowborg costume was used in Power Rangers for the Vengeance character in Wild Forces Forever Red episode, what if I had Shadowborg's costume for Lord Metarex for the first movie? But unfortunately, I decided to use the Star Wars character Darth Malgus. If you don't know who that character is, I suggest you look him up. If you are a Star Wars fan, if you already know who Darth Malgus is, good for you. But hey. Okay, I had enough talking about how much I want to continue ripping on my first movie and telling all those haters to fuck off and all that. Let's talk about my new Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film. Actually, a remake of a Lost Galaxy fan film that I've had trouble working on for the last 4 or 5 years and a half. So the premise for the Rise of Trakeena, the new version, if you have not caught on to my original version of the fan film when it was, if you remember, if any of you guys that are on the Ranger Wiki, the Power Ranger Super Sentai Wiki, and when I was, if you recalled me from my username of Ranger Mania Guy 2010, seeing my face on my profile page on the Ranger Wiki, I was that person that was posting blogs about my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film when everyone didn't really give a fuck about me and everyone was more onto Samurai and Go Kiger at the time, and that's when I knew that I was not getting anywhere. I just hope the fan film remake gets the job done for me. And so that way I can end my obsession with Trakeena and my obsession with this particular Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film project, because I've been doing this project for almost 6 years, come the fall of 2010, and I will eventually, when I'm completed with the film, I just hope this obsession on this particular project ends. Because I've worked, while I was doing the recent fan film reboot of Lost Galaxy, I was still mind boggled about thinking about the Rise of Trakeena and thinking about reworking it. And I'm not going to tell you all the details of what my original proposed story and premise was for that, because a lot of you didn't really give a fuck about that back in 2011 because Power Rangers Samurai was coming out, and let's face it, Samurai sucked. And Go Kiger, well, knowing the 35th anniversary series of Super Sentai that year, everybody was hooked on Go Kiger. And knowing that I have to realize that Power Rangers is nothing like Go Kiger at the time, but became Super Mega Force, it just really butchered Go Kiger and really butchered the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers. I get it. So let me get started on the fan film. Let me get started on the premise for my next Lost Galaxy fan film. So, The Rise of Trakeena is going to be set 5 to 6 or so years after the first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, which I made last year for that expected year release. As the Galaxy Rangers have been out of commission from saving Terra Venture from the attacks of Lord Metarex and his false Zeon Empire. Now, when I refer to Galaxy Rangers, I'm not referring to Leo and his team in my fan film series and known as the Marsh verse of Power Rangers. Again, I'm talking about the Rangers that I created to be the Galaxy Rangers this time, like Tony and the rest. My new Red Ranger, Tony Marshall, is beginning to find his responsibilities as a leader and his duties as a Power Ranger increasingly difficult, as he must reconnect himself with his team after his absence from off the face of Terra Venture for a couple of years. In the meantime, he will then end up, well, when not in action, fighting evil forces on Terra Venture, but in his personal leisure, ends up in a strained but unnecessary and unwanted affair with one of Terra Venture's new female staff members, who was appointed by the head commander of Terra Venture. Well, if it was Commander Stanton, because, I don't want to use the same characters that was in the show in my universe. I want to use my own characters, who would refuse to end their relationship, resulting this female individual to then stalk and manipulate and blackmail Tony. Following Tony's many rejections to her, she would then assume herself as the Galaxy Rangers' enemy, Trakeena, the daughter of the deceased Scorpius. So pretty much likely this female individual, who I will refer to, was actually in disguise stalking the Red Ranger, wanting information from him and everything else. And the Queen Heir to her father's throne, in order to dominate and put an end to the Galaxy Power Rangers' legacy, with Tony and her as her prime target of ridding him from the existence of the colony and off the face of the galaxy and universe, as she also seeks much revenge against him for destroying Scorpius, much like what Leo ended up doing in terms of feeling her wrath in the TV show. With Trakeena's plan coming in full motion in circle, she will bring on a new world order to take over Terra Venture and make its inhabitants her slaves. The film will mainly be based in portrayal from the different and alternate story perspective of Trakeena, as it will focus on how did she even got to know of the Power Rangers and which caused her to have a grudge against them, and the film will secretly go deeper into what made Trakeena so evil and why she is that way in the first place. Is anyone resonated by this premise? I want to know in the comment section before I, start disabling comments on these videos. So, when I just think about it, the original fan film premise of the Rise of Trakeena was this. Well, we all know that as much as we know Trakeena's a story in the show on Power Rangers, but you see what I've been doing and established since the 2014 film last year, I want to do my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy films in an alternate dimension, like RPM and the Mighty Morphin movie universe. Why do you think those two established shows and showing movie was in its own dimension? I understand Lost Galaxy is part of the main continuity of Power Rangers, but the way how I'm establishing Lost Galaxy is its own thing. Now, if you guys are going to say and disagree and say that I should have these movies of mine in the same universe as the real Lost Galaxy series, then I don't know what to say to you. Now, suppose if I was to if I was to remake RPM as a fan film, I would make RPM be part of the main canon of Power Rangers, when knowing RPM is not in the same universe as the main Power Rangers canon. RPM, although it had a couple of Easter egg surprises from previous seasons, is its own thing. And so was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Why do you think the Mighty Morphin movie from 1995, 20 years ago, was in its own universe? So what's wrong, with me redoing Lost Galaxy and having it in its own canon universe instead of being established from what we know from the main canon universe of Power Rangers? I mean, what's wrong that I can't do my own version of Lost Galaxy instead of trying to make it all shot for shot, a total shot for shot remake of every of the 45 episodes of the show? I've been telling you this for over 400 so videos now, people. So for those who don't understand what I'm doing with these movies, then I guess you guys are acting like I don't understand what the F I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's like y'all don't understand what I'm talking about half of the time, or a lot of the time. But then again, like the first film, This film will not take place in the same continuity as the actual Saban produced series and within the Power Rangers universe. Rather, this film takes place in its own alternate continuity and universe while still set on the space colony of Terra Venture, with its own set of Rangers and its different staff maintaining control of the colony. This version of the project will seek for the first time in my fan fiction series after almost 5 to 6 years of casting hell when I tried to get Trakeena in my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film series, looking for what actresses in my mind wanted to, resemble the role. Will likely finally make her debut in my fan fiction series of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films and Power Ranger films in general. After many actresses and normal women that I wanted to do the part turned me down in the past for the project. However, the new version of the Rise of Trakeena will not make any character or story references from my previous version of the fan film when I originally wanted it for release in 2011. And when it was in production until its cancellation 3 years ago in July of 2012. Rather, it will ignore those references in favor of something more sophisticated and somewhat semi-original, while it would still be focused on its lead female villain. So, what do you guys feel about that premise? Again, what do you guys feel about the premise? I want to know. Now, what I have with you is casting sides of who the character descriptions of, because what I felt what was lacking in my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film was character development. So speaking of which, whatever pieces of development didn't establish well with my main Ranger characters will probably be reestablished here. Because I knew then and there something was really missing in my first movie that I need to make up for the second one. Because the second film, I feel that I need to take a lot of time on this one. No need to rush. Because what's the point of rushing it? Now, as you can see in the character description, since I'm currently writing a couple more pages for the script, I'm almost halfway finished with the script, by the way, and I wrote as much as pieces of development that I would establish of what the characters, except my new Pink Ranger, will be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the character descriptions for the Rangers and as well as for Trakeena, since I wrote a whole bunch of stuff for her character as established in my film and not from Amy Roll's performance from the show. So, here we go. Galaxy Power Rangers Marshverse Rangers. Tony Marshall, the Red Ranger and leader of the second generation Galaxy Rangers, part of the Marshverse universe. Tony is the half brother of Jesse Marshall. He is as established from the first movie that I did. He's an outcast and a stowaway orphan who dedicates himself to use his gifted power and responsibility to protect and save those close to him from danger as much as possible on Terra Venture. In this film, in a 4 to 5 year gap after the first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, Tony starting in this film is at a state where most prior to this film, after many attacks from leftover Zeon Empire forces, he is brutally damaged and mentally frustrated as he must maintain his anger from trying to hurt his friends and anyone else directed toward but he will once he confronts the team's main villain, actually a female villain, because knowing that there's not much female supervillains to develop anyway, to unleash his power to take her down once and for all. Tony is at the age of his adult life as a ranger, where he, when not saving the world in his leisure time, undergoes a midlife crisis. So yes, the Rangers that I have in my fan film series of Power Rangers are at the ages of their 40s, 30s, and 40s. Well, let's say for the Green Ranger, because the actor whose likeness I'm still using for the course of this trilogy, he's like late 40s, early 50s, so this makes him the oldest Green Ranger in the team. Though he's pretty much young at heart, but still considered old anyway, so yeah. Also starring in this film, Tony is in a personal state where he currently believes that he had failed his duties as a leader and as a Power Ranger. Willis, despite the death of Gwen McQueen, who was part of the team and his somewhat girlfriend in the first film, 2 years prior to this film, but off screen. Gwen's death off screen between the 4-year gap between Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 1 and this inflicted and affected Tony to mourn in so much grieving loss, and as well as with the other 3 Rangers. In spite so, Tony must remotivate himself to become a better leader and a much stronger Red Ranger after being crushed and demolished by Trakeena in his first encounter with her. Speaking of which, Tony is Trakeena's primary target, just like how she was with Leo in the actual, series in the show. In which she has a deep grudge on when she sees him morph as the Red Ranger, when she sees him morphed as the Red Ranger. When morphed, but when she sees Tony not morphed as the Red Ranger, he becomes very wary that someone has become completely close and overly attached to him, and even sets him up with a stalking accusation by one of Terra Venture's new female staff members, but though in disguise, making him lose his then newly appointed position with Terra Venture's GSA staff, which eventually takes place scenes prior to this particular woman's exposure of her having an affair with Tony and obsessively stalking him in the process when he later rejects her. More of those details will be explained when I get to Trakeena's casting, character description for this film. Now, in terms of Tony having a midlife crisis, I understand most of the Power Ranger fan films that most of you guys out there are making right now. You guys want to make the Power Rangers, stray away and go far beyond from being teenagers with attitude instead rather be grown-ups with what's a word to describe that, and instead of making them being teenagers with attitude again. Well, it'll come back to me eventually, or probably during the comment section. I don't know when. The next Ranger, Will James, who is also returning for this film. Will is the Blue Ranger of the second generation Galaxy Rangers and one of the Galactic Military Police Defenders and the Galactic Space Alliance's top-ranked security officers. In this film, since Gwen's death, Will is appointed by Tony as the team's second in command, unlike in the first film where he was over-strict and self-derivating. Will begins opening up to Tony in spite of the loss of Gwen's death. Well, if you guys have already seen my first film and seen how my Blue Ranger was toward my Red Ranger, when not in action and such, my Blue Ranger was a bit like, what's another, now, name a Blue Ranger from a previous already existing Power Ranger season that was a dick to the team, had to go straight by the rules and books. I'm going to exclude the Blue Ranger I know from this particular season, and was a bit jealous that the Red Ranger was this, Red Ranger was that the Blue Ranger didn't have. This particular Blue Ranger was a total dickhead about girls. If a girl was the Red Ranger, would she lead them to battle? Disabided it and being a total sexist dick. Yes, I'm referring to Sky Tate from Power Rangers SPD. So pretty much likely my version of the Blue Galaxy Ranger is like Sky from SPD. This time around, my Blue Ranger will not be like Sky. I'd rather make him more like his own character this time around. I understand as much as I couldn't take my first movie seriously, but this time I'll take a lot of things seriously with this film. Trust me. Miranda Campbell is the Yellow Ranger of the second generation Galaxy Rangers and the sister of Thorne Campbell, who will not be in this film nor throughout the rest of my series as the films will go on. His off-screen absence will be explained in the film in one scene between her and Tony, which I will not tell you about until when you guys see the film a few years from now. I'm just giving you brief descriptions of what the characters are going to be in the sequel. Since Gwen's death, Miranda begins opening up to Tony as she expresses her deep feelings on how he and the others felt losing her 2 years prior to this film. Miranda herself is even heartbroken to see Gwen pass away in such a grieving manner. In the first film, she only had at least 2 brief scenes, but since Thorne, who had most of the majority of screen time as Yellow Ranger in the first film, is no longer in the group, she is now appointed full-time as the Yellow Ranger, taking the Yellow Quasar Saber and piloting the Wolf Galactazord. Like the first film, Miranda is still average, but is conservative, direct, and shy. Now, I'm not quite sure about making her as a tomboy again, because you see, the actress that the TV and film actress whose likeness I'm using for the Yellow Ranger this time around, instead of swapping out, if you look at the photo in front of you, the cast photo of the puppets of the Rangers that I have, if you look at them closely. On your right, the first person in yellow on the right, who I have as the Yellow Ranger, is another actress that isn't, because the actress that I had for my Yellow Ranger was Rooney Mara, from the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, Girl with Dragon Tattoo US movie remake as well as the upcoming Peter Pan reboot movie just simply called Pan. Unfortunately, I don't want to use Rooney Mara's likeness for my Yellow Ranger anymore. Instead, I want to use the likeness of another actress that I felt should fit more rather for the Yellow Ranger position, and of that is actress Bridget Regan. Now, if you don't know who Bridget Regan is, she was on a couple of TV shows and movies, most prominently on Legend of the Seeker, though that show's been ended, and currently on Marvel's Agent Carter. So, yeah, because, somehow I was wondering, if you recall from my my proposed film projects podcast that I stated that when I stated about my proposed Spider-Man fan film project, I originally wanted my Yellow Ranger, I originally wanted Bridget Regan to be my choice for Mary Jane when I wanted to do a Spider-Man fan film using likenesses of celebrities, who should play Spider-Man, who should play the Green Goblin, who should play J. Jonah Jameson, etc. at the time, until I had to scrap that fan film project of Spider-Man in favor of my current Power Rangers one. So, yeah. So, yes, I'm using Bridget Regan. So I'm using Bridget Regan's facial likeness for my Yellow Ranger this time instead of Rooney Mara, because I felt that Rooney Mara wasn't really cutting it. I felt she looked at like a pale, pasty face for the role. So yeah, no offense. Brown Jones is the Green Ranger of the second generation Galaxy Rangers, a mechanic of Terra Venture and the Galactic Military Police Defenders. He is the serious-minded and optimistic member of the Rangers and is a game planner when it comes to making strategies to defeat those who are evil that double-crosses his team. Since Gwen's death, Brown's position of being second in command has been offered to Will. So therefore, my Green Ranger is no longer the second in command of the team this time around. His position of being second in command of the team has been given to my Blue Ranger. Now I'm going to introduce you to my new Pink Ranger, who I just mentioned in many podcasts ago, a few weeks, when I announced that aside from my fan casting announcement of using the likeness of Maggie Sif for Trakeena in my fan film, and Kristen Milioti in which I'm using her likeness up for my new Pink Galaxy Ranger. Siri McBride. Now here's the description, since I never got to tell you of the description for the character. Siri is new to my fan fiction series of Power Rangers in terms of fan films, part of the Marshverse. Siri is the new Pink Ranger of the second generation Galaxy Rangers and is Gwen's replacement posthumous of her death. Gwen, I was about to say Gwen. I'm tired of saying Gwen. Siri takes the will to become Tony's new love interest, while at the same time takes part of fulfilling her duties as a Ranger for the first time. Now, here's some of the character traits for Siri's character. Siri, S-I-R-I, like, the personal voice assistant app on your iPhone. Yeah, so, you know what I'm talking about. Siri, okay, so this is her character traits. She is quirky, spunky, conservative, affectionate, heartwarming, ditzy, and perhaps a little bit more feminine than Gwen was, while Miranda was the tomboyish of the two female Rangers. So what do you guys feel on that character description and character traits for a series character? You'll find out eventually when I start filming and releasing some footage. Jesse Marshall. He is, like I mentioned, Jesse is Tony's half-brother of the Marshall family and is the most the most proactive member of the group. After the death of the original Magna Defender in my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, like as well as with Bull Black and Ginga Man, the original Magna Defender in the main Lost Galaxy series. Jesse becomes the new Magna Defender, just like in Ginga Man. Hugo, after the original Bull Black dies, Hugo becomes the new Bull Black. And in the real Lost Galaxy series, after the original Magna Defender dies, Mike becomes the new Magna Defender. And also in this fan film series, unlike Mike, Leo's brother in the actual series of Lost Galaxy, in my Marshverse universe of Lost Galaxy, Jesse, my Sixth Ranger, unfortunately the Magna Defender doesn't really count as a Sixth Ranger. It sucks that he doesn't count as a Power Ranger, but why the hell do you think that the Magna Defender has his own Zord and his own Morpher? So how can you not qualify the Magna Defender as a Power Ranger? You know, it always just frustrates me why he is not qualified as a Ranger. It just really pisses me off. You know, you just wait until when I do a podcast discussion on the Magna Defender in a couple of weeks. I will discuss my frustration with why the Magna Defender, after so many years since these Power Rangers came and left, why doesn't the Magna Defender qualify as a Power Ranger? He has his own Zord. He has his own Morpher. So how can you not qualify him as a Sixth Ranger? I'll discuss that later, though. But anyway, my version of the Magna Defender will actually, as the Red Ranger's brother this time, will keep his Magna Defender powers full-time and co-op with his brother's team more often, than unlike what Mike was in in Lost Galaxy, and Hugo was in Ginga Man. So, there you go. Supporting characters like Devin Stewart and Chris Donner and them, they can wait for, in terms of other descriptions later. Let's get to the villains. Because, as you can, believe it or not, the more I read of this, once when I read Trakeena's character description for this, it's a lot to talk about. Because, I am so, obsessed with the character. And, hold on. No, really. Sorry for the interruption. There was something going on in the background. Anyway, I'm going to edit out that silent moment later. Anyway, once when I'm about to read Trakeena's character description for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2, there is a lot to talk about because I have really written a lot of things for her character that I want to explain a little bit to you, and also talk about some of the things that I removed from her original character traits from the actual canon of Power Rangers, and as well as the way how Amy Roll, I'm going to say that because she's married to her Lost Galaxy co-star that was a Ranger, performance, because I knew then and there. It's just when I think, the thing is, as much as I love these Power Rangers, it feels to me that the more I look back at Lost Galaxy over and over, it feels pretty boring now. That's why I went to do my own version of these Power Rangers. I mean, looking at the same character performances over and over, it's kind of boring. Okay, so once when I read the villains descriptions, there's a side note before I do so that this includes, the villains that I have in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, other than Trakeena, will include villains from the actual Power Rangers universe, but those following villains are reimagined in the Marshverse for the fan film series, while there are at least 3 that weren't in Lost Galaxy. I'm going to surprise you with those following 3 when I get through Trakeena's character description, because I wrote a whole, but my character description for Trakeena is very mouthful. it's a mouthful. I wrote a lot for her when it came to reestablishing her character in my fanfiction series of PRLG, and I've waited 5 to 6 years to reimagine her role, because remember, like all these other Power Ranger fan films out there, every filmmaker wants to do Power Rangers in a reimagined state. Nobody wants to do Power Rangers the same way that it was since the beginning of MMPR. Everybody wants to do Power Rangers in a reimagined state, again speaking. So let me go ahead and read Trakeena's character description, because it's very long. It's very, it is excruciating as soon as I spend the next 45 minutes of this video talking about her character description for my fan film. Well, everybody knows that Trakeena was the main villainess of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, now the main primary antagonist and somewhat neutral antagonist of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, The Rise of Trakeena. She is still the main title antagonist of the film. While there are a lot of elements, when you guys see the film, that I removed from her character, from her counterpart from the show and on television, that has now been foregone to be used here in the film. One particular characterized element was, being at first the spoiled being the spoiled daughter of Scorpius, stuck up, vapid, and such like that, being removed from my version of the character. And as well as then when her father is defeated at the hands of the Rangers, she becomes queen heir of her deceased throne. But that's one element I'll keep, is when she is completely at the state where she is actually full-on, full-edged evil queen of the universe, and not being, at first being, when I start filming, once when I release the film, there's going to be a couple of flashback scenes of when Trakeena was that spoiled, annoying, stuck-up, teenage girl in her early 20s, thing. So, but not during the main portions of the story. In this universe, Trakeena has some things that she never had in her character in the real series of Power Rangers, but in this film, she is portrayed vastly different. So that means I'm ignoring what made her so, at first being the most annoying, daddy's girl turned, fierce ass kicking warrior. But she is still a warrior, but it's just some of the elements that I mentioned, I just don't want her to be the same way that she was on the show when I do the film. Because I know you guys are acting like, I understand some of you people don't want to see reimagined versions of characters you still like, but I understand, well, some of you will have to get over it eventually, so. Look at all those other, Power Ranger fan films, mainly a lot of the Mighty Morphin fan films out there right now. Well, I think they're, again, are doing Mighty Morphin in a different light in fan film form of Power Rangers. Go figure. Trakeena is still a villain, but she has what was seen in some female villains, a dual personality. So that means my version of Trakeena will have 2 different personalities, and I feel that she will have this sort of a personality disorder going on while she's finding ways and strategies to get rid of the Power Rangers and at least try to take her strategy seriously and not try to make it as over the top like most villains in Power Rangers have. Because when I look back at every single season of Power Rangers that came and left, and when I look back at how the villains were portrayed, because knowing the fact that Power Rangers has always been a kid's show for so long, but if an adult, as a grown-up, I want to see how I would to reimagine these characters if they were totally mature and totally serious. I don't want to make the characters being silly and goofy and cartoonish acting and looking the more I just have them betrayed on screen. Because that stuff is so old. The more I just look back at these performances like that, it just makes me wonder, why do I want to continue seeing the same over-the-top performances from back when? Look, most often, the 1990s era of Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin, The Lost Galaxy, there has been some really over-the-top stuff. But mainly, once when I do a DVD review of Lost Galaxy, once when I get the Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Complete Series DVD next month, I will tell you some of the things that I hate about Lost Galaxy now, and as well as past seasons of Power Rangers. Other than that, where everything's over the top. Trust me. In the film, Trakeena dubs herself as Terra Venture's Reckoning, much akin to a la Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, because I feel that The Dark Knight Rises, that Batman movie of Christopher Nolan's trilogy, became my biggest inspiration for this film. Despite her rise to power and incoming plans on destroying the space colony and the Power Rangers. There is more character traits, despite the whole, what we already know from her character traits. I understand that I shouldn't be changing Trakeena and changing her character traits, because I know you guys are going to hate me for that. In this film, she is strongly cruel, deceitful, cold-hearted, and vain. Trakeena in this film is a strongly cruel, deceitful, cold-hearted, and vain insectoid human woman with no kind of positive emotions, but gradually shows negative pessimistic emotions, who is bent on mass destruction. Like in the TV series, she's a fierce combatant fighter and the vengeful queen warrior. Like Tony, she is also... I want to make Trakeena as an outcast and pretty much a definite menace to society. There is one fan theory. Okay, well, this is from the original draft of the character descriptions about her and her father being part of the United Alliance of Evil until they were rejected, been cast out. I don't want to read all of that. That's a bit too much on my behalf. Really, that is way too much. What I also wrote about Trakeena is that she's going to be my fan films is female femme fatale and dominatrix, who sports the usual black form-fitting suit made of, this time with latex and armor molds that is molded after any part of an insect. But Trakeena is based on that of a prey-eating mantis. She also has a new insectoid headdress made after her original from the show, with the purple eyes and straight pointed, antenna, mantis antenna on her headdress, like as displayed on the show. And I understand the most controversial bit to her costume and her appearance in my film. When I go out and find someone who can do these parts of these characters, and when I pick someone to play Trakeena, the most controversial problem in terms of the costume, and I've been talking about this for over 400 videos, 3 years tops, the cleavage to the costume is going to be the most controversial thing. I mean, you perverted asshole guys want to see a woman's breasts or rack of cleavage showing into the costume. But how would you feel? I mean, how would women feel when you see? I mean, do you want me to make this character want to make herself out to be a whore, or a skank or a slut, with her showing her rack into the public? Because that's exactly what the problem is with me. Why I feel pretty uncomfortable worrying about what women would think if I was to present this character, the way how she is dressed and the way how she's showing herself. Just think about it. Cleavage to the costume, which signifies her evil but glamorous feminine dark beauty. She is the second... Now, her alter ego, like I stated... Now, I understand that Trakeena is just only her own character. She only has one personality, and that's her evil self. But in my fanfiction universe of Power Rangers, what if Trakeena had another personality, another alter ego? Well, if we already know who Astronema is, and we know Astronema is Corone was Astronema, what if Trakeena had another personality? Because this is all in my fan film universe, and what if she had her own personality? I mean, I understand this is starting to sound very derivative of what I'm doing, and I understand plot devices that just don't work. And, I mean, look back at when I was talking about how much I did not like G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, for what they did with the Baroness and her character, instead of making the Baroness in the G.I. Joe movie being what her character was in every iteration of G.I. Joe, being the love interest of Destro, being a East European noble with a thick Russian accent, and an intelligent spy of Cobra. That movie portrayed the Baroness to be Duke's brainwashed ex-girlfriend, and Cobra Commander's his brother, which made no sense. It feels to me that my version of Trakeena is also just as derivative as the Baroness from G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, but I decided to try to not make her as derivative or make her so bitchy and annoying and all of that crap. So, and that's one of the problems why I do not like female villains in movies today. If you're going to make a female villain as derivative as all hell, even if you're doing an adaptation of something, like a TV show, if you're doing an adaptation of a TV show or a video game, if you're making that particular female character either hero or villain derivative, that's not going to work, especially the female villain. If you're going to do a female villain as derivative like that, you expect people to appreciate that reiteration of the character. Well, think about that. You know, I hate to say this about the Irene character that who she has a dawning personality of. The same name, Irene's last name is the same name as a certain particular someone whose name I just cannot get out of my fucking head. I just can never get her out of my head. At all. I'm going to spill it out anyway. Irene Frischman is a mentally unstable, borderline but a talented ballet dancer and a former model who has been appointed by Commander Chalmers at the GSA's new temp assistant, which in the meantime does some needless, when not on her job, doing some needless, lustful, obsessive things toward Tony Marshall undercover. As her and Tony's relationship comes to a clinging affair, Trakeena, as Irene, while in different personality, begins developing a split personality disorder, famously known as multiple personality disorder. So this is the first time in any of my Power Rangers fan film projects that I would ever create a character, especially from the existing universe of Power Rangers and throughout the franchise, where if I was to readapt the character for a fan film or a feature film, the character had a certain mental illness. So pretty much likely, my version of Trakeena for this film has a mental illness. I wouldn't say she would have schizophrenia. Well, I guess maybe. Why do you think, like I stated about like another character from SPD, why do you think, when you think of Emperor Grum, when he talks about his plans of conquering conquering the Power Rangers and as well as trying to take down the SPD, unit, why do you think Emperor Grum wanted to, why do you think we've seen Emperor Grum talk to himself a couple of times in a few episodes talking about his plans of trying to destroy the Power Rangers and conquering the galaxy? Why do you think that? Go back. I suggest you rewatch SPD, look at Emperor Grum for a few episodes, and if you don't think he is a complete schizophrenic, go figure. The thing about it, making Trakeena to be this, this schizophrenic, villain with multiple personalities, or at least two different personalities. I wanted to tell this kind of a story with the character and want to experiment it, as this is, again, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Reimagined, and having her have different personalities. I understand this won't make no sense here, but when I present the film a few years from now, because yes, I am slating this sequel for a 2019 release to end the decade of the 2010s, because I spent almost nearly this entire decade devoted to this particular Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film project, in which I have spent the whole decade trying to get off the ground for so long. And doing a film based on Lost Galaxy and making Trakeena be, having a dual personality issue and problems, I want this film to explore that. While in the meantime, she is still a villain and still hates the Power Rangers, but what if, personally, inside her, she has another personality rumbling inside her? Because in some seasons of Power Rangers, we have seen villains even at the end of a season, like always is traditionally, where the villain would reveal his or herself true identity. Like, for example, Power Rangers in Space. We already know that Astronema is Andros' sister, Corone. And when we already know in Countdown to Destruction, when Andros destroyed the Z-Wave, every single force of evil that was part of the United Alliance of Evil was turned to dust, and some were turned to good. With Astronema being the most prime, included to be reformed and be redeemed and be redeemed. And also another villain example, Rancic from Power Rangers Time Force. Why do you think at the end of Time Force, Rancic surrendered himself and then came the Wild Force team up with the Time Force Rangers? Why do you think Rancic was fully redeemed and so was Nadira? Then Ninja Storm came along, Lothor's nieces were redeemed. Well, at a random notice. Then Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Why do you think Elsa was redeemed? And so was, Anton Mercer although he was split from his Mezagai personality. So, and also Mezagai is probably another villain who also had different personality, who had two personalities emerged himself, and as well as Anton Mercer's. Then Power Rangers Mystic Force, Necroli being actually a vampire bat queen, monstrous themed, but also at the end of the season reveals that Necroli is actually human. Then Power Rangers, I suppose, Jungle Fury. Well, actually, Jungle Fury, Camille was actually two different ways. Being Daishi's, confidant, who has both a human form and a chameleon armored form. But by the end of Jungle Fury, we already know about the end of Jungle Fury, she and Daishi, Jared, had been reformed. Then RPM, as much as I do not like Tanai 7, she was the same way too. So, yeah. But out of all of those villains in Power Rangers, Trakeena and as well as a couple of other Lost Galaxy villains have not been redeemed. So what I'm going to do with these Power Rangers Lost Galaxy films is try to find a way to, something that the show didn't even, barely even did, other than the way how Villamax redeemed himself in the finale, but though he got killed, and Tretron, how he redeemed himself. Trakeena is the only villain from Lost Galaxy that has never redeemed herself. So what if I were to explore that in the fan film? If she was to have herself redeemed. Think about it. Because knowing as much as she is so evil and just like her father, what if she was to have herself redeemed? Think about that. And also, in this film, not only that Trakeena is strongly jealous and has another Ranger grudge, other than the Red Ranger, she also has a grudge against the Pink Ranger. Actually, she has a grudge against all of the Power Rangers, but mostly the Red and Pink Rangers, which she will also have issues with in the film. Not just the Red Ranger, but the Pink Ranger as well, in which she also has a grudge on. And in which she thinks that the Pink Ranger is far more beautiful and prettier than she is. Well, as noted, as I'm going to take a little small reference from the show when Trakeena in the episode, in the episode, Stolen Beauty, where she sent all those, sent her, her particular, that particular monster of hers from that particular episode of the week, when she sent Crew Mummy to steal beauty from all the women on Terra Venture, and she was in the skies, blah, blah, blah. And she was jealous that a lot of girls on Terra Venture, especially the Yellow and Pink Rangers, were more prettier than she was. So I'm going to take that small reference from the show a little bit, but not make the whole thing go in fruition in the film, where she is really jealous that a lot of the that the Yellow and Pink Rangers, especially the Pink Ranger in particular, is more prettier and beautiful than she is, and people would classify Trakeena as this ugly looking bitch with no sense of beauty or elegance, but just total goth black magic, sense of arbiter of her appearance. And whereas Also in this fan film that I'm doing, that Trakeena is completely obsessed, especially obsessed with her mortal beauty. Whereas she has a complex problem with her age. So pretty much likely Trakeena, I mean, we already know in the show she was, when Amy Roll played the character on the show 16 years ago, she was 24 years old. In my fan film series, Trakeena is like between the age of 39 to 45, I suppose. Actually, let's say in my film, she's at the age of 45 and somehow recently stopped aging. So that means she is stuck at the age of 45. So she is no less older than 45 years old. Okay, but let's just say she's 43. 43, 44, 45 years old. Let's go with that in my universe. Now, and then the ending side note, as much as I've talked enough about Trakeena, I'm going to end it stating that my iteration of Trakeena for the fan film is going to be loosely based on the Madame Noor character from Resha Sentai ToQger. And also, here's another announcement regarding the Rise of Trakeena remake. My next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film is going to take a little bit of some elements from two Sentai shows that just came out recently for the last 4 years. There are going to be some elements from ToQger added, and there are going to be some elements of Go Buster added to the film. Although we already know that there had been, when Amit Bhawmik came back, and when he wanted to, after hearing so much about Go Buster not being adapted into Power Rangers, for the season, because a lot of people are still upset that Go Buster has not been adapted, instead Dino Charge and Q Ryuja was been picked up and been greenlit. There are a few elements from Go Busters I will use, but I'm not going to tell you what elements from Go Busters will be used in my fan film. But I will tell you at least one or two elements from ToQger that will be used for my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film. I've already stated this about my liking of ToQger in terms of its villains. The reason why I like ToQger because of the villains is because of that goth noir vibe, goth 1930s, 1940s noir punk, steampunk rock, steampunk, vibe that they were going for their villains. So what if I were to, what I'm going to do is take a couple of elements from the villains from ToQger for some of the villains from Lost Galaxy, but though Lost Galaxy is based on Gingaman, but though it was its own thing instead of being based on what Gingaman was, that fairy tale nature themed Sentai, what if I were to base Trakeena off the main female villain of ToQger instead of, Shalinda from Gingaman? Because, actually, I've always been fond of Madame Noor's character from ToQger. You know who I'm talking about. She was the mother of Greta and also the queen leader of the, Shadowline, villains from ToQger. You know who I'm talking about. And I was thinking, what if I were to make Trakeena like Madame Noor's character a little bit? And, that's one of the few elements from ToQger. And also, there is a surprising element that I want to take from ToQger is about, what if Trakeena had a son or a daughter that would aid her? I was thinking most likely a mother and son bondage, because I felt that, I wanted to take that element and transpire it for the film. Just to make it reminiscent to ToQger, but within, my version of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, as much as I understand, as much as we've had the elements of Lost Galaxy being a space-themed series, and, but I at least I will not give the Galaxy Rangers those god-awful Reshas that became the ToQO, because to be honest, though, I told you, every time when I talk about ToQger sometimes, every now and then on and off and time again, that I do not like the ToQO. I do not like its design and functions, the capability and all that crap, because the ToQO looks atrocious. It looks so god-awful and so goddamn atrocious. Enough said. While I mainly based my version of Trakeena, now all believe it or not, Freshman, I am calling you out. And she, my version of Trakeena is going to be inspired for the remake from my, the assistant principal in my former high school, who, by the way, is not a fucking fan of the show. Well, as much as she can say that she doesn't like Power Rangers, how would you like it? How would she like it if I were to talk shit about her favorite show, 2.5 Men? and I hate to bring her name up for this, Susan Frischman, as much as I've been talking about her so much for the last 3 years, but also who also in real life acted very paranoid toward me when I kept saying that I was stalking her and all that crap. An element partially used from Tokyo Drift's main villain, my iteration of Trakeena in my fan film is here, somewhat to be a mistress of someone, but who exactly? You'll have to find out eventually. But, and speaking of freshmen, most of the story for my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film of Rise of Trakeena, the remake, some of the elements is going to be some of the story elements that you're about to see soon once when my next fan film comes out. Sorry for all these stammering and stuttering attacks and all. Will be based on my real life experience from my last year in high school, because some of the story, whatever happened in my last year in high school will transpire here in the film. But except the Rangers, I can see if my Galaxy Rangers were in high school and one of my Rangers was stalking this lady that was, that would become Trakeena, but would be based on the same person that I kept bringing up for so long. Every time when I think about why she ruined my film and why she kept accusing me for stalking her and harassing her and all that crap. Suppose that's exactly what I want to do, because I just want to do this remake just to get that bitch out of my mind and my high school past off my back. That's why I'm doing this remake. So that way I can end my obsession and put an end to this nightmare. Now, it's confirmed that Deviant and Kegler is going to be confirmed for the sequel, but I promise I don't want to have a whole bunch of villains. The rule is, if you're going to do a superhero movie, you can only have one villain. Having more than one villain is going to complicate the movie. Well, yes, the X-Men movies disregarded that rule, but a couple of superhero movies we know, like Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, they had multiple villains when we promised one particular villain that is the main villain of that movie. Even the Spider-Man movies now, ever since Spider-Man 3, we've been starting having multiple villains in every Spider-Man film. Even a couple of other superhero movies, like Superman 2. Superman 2, General Zod and his cohorts, those were multiple villains. So go figure on that. And even in Man of Steel, General Zod and Feora, that makes multiple. So, yeah. Though the Lost Galaxy villains that won't be so important in the film story here is Deviant, Scorpius, well, though posthumously, Kegler, Trecheron, and hell, even I'm going to bring Villamax back, so it's possible you guys are probably going to want me to have Villamax and Trakeena again together. In a way, so, well, yeah. Surprisingly enough, what I'm going to do for my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, and you guys are probably wondering if the Psycho Rangers would appear in this film, but I decided, I'd rather wait until when I do Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 3, then I'll introduce the Psycho Rangers, reintroduce them in my fan film series. But there is one character alone from Power Rangers in Space I wanted to bring up for my next film. Astronema. Yes, Astronema has been confirmed to appear in my next Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, but only for a cameo in the fan film. So I'm not going to tell you where the cameo scene where Astronema and Trakeena meet each other is going to be, but I'm not going to tell you. So, there you go. Astronema is going to be in the fan film, but just only for a cameo. Well, why do you think of the Zordon of Eltar fan film? Why do you think Divatox made a cameo in that fan film, that particular Mighty Morphin fan film of Zordon of Eltar? Although Zordon of Eltar was mostly surrounded of Zordon and the forces of evil that withstood his way over the course of those 6 years prior to when Zordon recruited the 5 teenagers with attitude to become the Power Rangers. And why you think Divatox was in the fan film. And although we all know that in that fan film with Zordon of Eltar, Sony Arlin, if I'm pronouncing her last name right, this cosplayer chick who does Power Rangers cosplay all the time, and as well as Marvel and DC cosplay, she was in the fan film. Sony Arlin, her name will get back to me when I pronounce it right eventually. There are two other villains from Power Rangers, though minor ones, that I want to use for the next film, but only for a cameo. Tri-Skull from the Lightspeed Rescue Lost Galaxy crossover episode. This time I'll try to give Tri-Skull a much bigger role than he did in Trakeena's Revenge in the show. And also who's making a minor appearance is Gluto from Power Rangers Time Force, that waste of space villain who never had much to do in the series, that was part of Ransix's gang. His role in the film will be to be announced, possibly. There are speculations right now that he might be in the fan film to be readapted and based on from his respective counterpart, from Gluto's respective counterpart from his Time Ranger roots, when Gluto, also known as Dawn, was a mob boss who Trakeena might work for in this fan film, possibly behind the scenes. So maybe I'm also going to use Gluto from Power Rangers Time Force / Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, because we all know that when Power Rangers Time Force came and left, and when we seen the character Gluto was considered waste of space. And he didn't really serve much this season. I know, it sucks that Gluto never got a chance to shine in Time Force, and only if he was very useful. Now, I can see if I was to do a Time Force fan film, and I made Gluto the boss, the main villain of the fan film, and not Ransik. When knowing Ransik is more popular, Gluto is not worth anything. So, just imagine if I were to do a fan film of Power Rangers Time Force right now. If I were to do a fan film based on Time Force. Now, here's an original villain. Now, I understand that this particular character that I was promised to have in my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, but I promised not to have a whole bunch of villains overflow the film the first time. Now, Aussie Otaku, if you're watching this and hearing, based on some of your original ideas from my first movie, this time around, for the first time in 3 years, I have intentions on using Captain Gregory from Ginga Man vs. Mega Ranger as a peripheral villain for this film. And Captain Gregory's counterpart for my fan-fiction series of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, his name is going to be Count Draco Maverick. And Draco's character, according to the description here, he is going to be one of Scorpius's rivals and the original ruler of the Lost Galaxy prior to Captain Mutiny, who previously was put into exile. Draco was a member of the Unknown Armada that will soon come. Count Draco is based on Captain Gregory's character from Ginga Man vs. Mega Ranger, though he is totally original. I just only want to keep the costume. Don't want to keep much character elements from him because there's nothing much I can say about Gregory from Ginga Man vs. Mega Ranger, who never made it into the Power Rangers version. So there you have it. I mean, characters. There are 3 existing Power Ranger villains not related to Lost Galaxy that would appear for only cameos or so. One particular villain that never made it into Lost Galaxy because due to the fact Lost Galaxy wanted to be its own thing, and also for the team up, they only picked the Psycho Rangers instead of being based on Ginga Man vs. Mega Ranger for the team up, and also all that peripheral stuff I have for Trakeena for the sequel. I understand. Well, this has been a very mouthful podcast tonight, and I felt that I'm really getting exhausted right now talking. So, in final thoughts, what do you think of the character descriptions for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy: The Rise of Trakeena so far? Did you thought the character descriptions this time was just a bit too much? Did you felt that the character descriptions that I wrote for the characters this time around was just right? And especially the way how I was going to reestablish my Rangers, despite the fact the first movie didn't have much character development at all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section, and I am off for now until I give you more updates on the Rise of Trakeena later. So this is Anthony Mars Jr. on PR Lost Galaxy 2014. Be sure to subscribe, comment, drop a like, and so forth. And this is the final video on PR Lost Galaxy 2014 until further notice, where the comment section on new videos, except for doing toy reviews and my current vlog series on Dino Charge, will be disabled. But the comment section on videos when I'm posting vlogs on Dino Charge and as well as doing toy reviews and such will still be open. But on podcasts and other miscellany videos I'll do on this channel is a definite no-no. So, sorry. This is the final video I will post to have the comment section open. If you don't have nothing nice to say, I'm going to say this for a random person who's just subscribing or just unsubscribing, tell me go fuck myself and all of that. This is going to be the last time I'm going to leave the comment section on these kind of videos open. I'm going to have to do it since nobody has nothing to say. I'll just have to leave the comments section closed. That's all I got to say. So anyway, thanks for watching and listening. And my discussion here at Terra Ventures Conference Hall and within the Power Rangers fandom at large is now over. Thank you and good night.